Hi, good afternoon. This is your Rockland County Executive Ed Day. We're here for a weekly COVID-19 update here in Rockland County. Uh, Best of the afternoon to you, and weather's been great. Hopefully that will continue. Right now, as most are aware who's been paying any attention to this, we entered into phase 4 today. That's the final phase. They're clearly, from the outset, I will tell you right now, there are a lot of us who are not happy in the control room, the county execs of the Mid-Hudson region. I suspect other areas too, because we've been held to a very strict standard of making sure that phases happen on the exact timeline that was laid out. I made it very clear to the governor's staff today that you had expectations of everybody to stay on target, stay on point. No changes were made, significant changes were made to the timeline. Well, the governor and his staff promised the people of this state that phase 4 fully will be entered into today. It's not the way it's happening. There are a lot of things that occurred that has changed the direction of this. There are industries that were removed. There are industries that have been taken out. We don't know when they'll be back in. The least that could be expected by you, all of you, is a timeline. And there needs to be a sense of urgency here in order to move forward. So we did make that point very clear today. So we're going to lay out some of the pieces of what's left of phase 4 that is being that's commencing today. Filming and media production activities can resume, and there'll be a limited capacity of 50% in indoor areas. Higher education is back on track. Professional sports competitions with no fans. Problem we have with that, I made this very clear in the control room, that there's a perception apparently in Albany that you can have baseball without fans. Well, maybe you can do that if you have TV revenue. That basically killed the Rockland Bowlers because they are a minor league club. Minor league clubs do not have TV as far as I know. And basically your revenue, even though it would have been minimized, could have been helpful to get through a season. So unfortunately, because of, again, I think it's a lack of understanding of what can be done. There was a plan that was put together by the Bowlers to play baseball and socially separate. And those who have gone to Boulder games know that's an extremely large stadium. I think they have capacity approaching 6,000 fans. You never see 6,000 fans as a rule at a Bowlers game. So social distancing would have been relatively simple to accomplish, but unfortunately, it would look like the baseball for our Rockland Bowlers is not going to happen. Low risk outdoor arts. This is, be very careful with this one. And entertainment like zoos, botanical gardens, nature parks, historic sites. These types of places can operate with a limited 33% capacity. Yes, that's a low-risk outdoor arts. Low-risk indoor arts and entertainment like museums and aquariums, which can operate with a 25% capacity limit or occupancy limit. I believe the Edward Hopper House will be one of those who will be reopening in Nyack. Again, 25% is the number that could shut a place down. So again, I don't know where these numbers are coming from. It defies logic when you say low risk indoor, low risk outdoor, and you have that, and you're saying to yourself, okay, how can we have 50% capacity in a restaurant then? So I don't understand what the logic is, and that is not shared with us. I frankly don't think the people in the control room for the governor's office actually know. Some industries that are not currently included in phase 4 or any phase at this juncture are gyms, movie theaters, bowling alleys, casinos, and malls. There is no date set for when these businesses will be able to open. I just shake my head at this point. I really do. This is why we made it clear there needs to be a sense of urgency. They've had plenty of time to look at this. I'm presuming that the governor has high expectations of his commissioner of health and the health department, whoever else is advising him, but this is going on way too long. At the very least, I'm demanding answers at this point. If you can't open up, you know something, we'll deal with what we have to deal with. If there's a reason why, that's fine. We'll deal with that. We are all, we have ingenuity here in Rockland County. We'll figure a way of getting things done, but the least we should be getting is a timeline. The governor's most recent executive order, that's 202.48, states that directives that close these type of businesses, they will remain in effect only until such time as a future executive order is issued. So These executive orders that pull these industries out of phase 4 are now shut down. They will not be reopened until the governor takes an active stance with an executive order to put them back into place. Now look, I certainly understand this is extremely frustrating and demoralizing for many business owners who have been trying to play by the rules. They may be barely hanging on as this pandemic enters its fourth month. It's frustrating to all of us here who basically are tasked with the job of bringing information to a control room, waiting for an answer to come back, and having no authority to make our own decision. It is very frustrating when we see this. The inconsistencies that are coming from New York State and the governor are absolutely unacceptable. And again, I've been clear. I give the governor credit for coming out of the gate with a good plan. His team did an excellent job. But the time is long past now for this kind of vacillation. We're going to continue to raise these issues during our regional control room calls with the members of the governor's staff and other state officials. But again, let me remind all of you, the ability to make any change does not rest with your town, your village, your county, not even the region. The ability to make change and to make decisions and to move things forward rests solely and completely with the governor of New York State. And to clarify another issue, the federal judge at the end of June relaxed the limit on indoor religious gatherings, bringing them to the same 50% limit as most other industries. This was an issue there was litigation by a variety of religious groups that they felt they should not be held to a different standard. The court agreed, and frankly, I do agree also. If you can do what has to be done to do social distancing and do it like every other business or every other entity, there is no reason why you should not be allowed the same ability to do that. Again, I'm sure you've heard next to nothing about that from anywhere in Albany, because apparently nobody in Albany wants to talk about mistakes and errors, or losses for that matter. Also, outdoor gatherings, and we discussed this today. We have a weekly conference call with our 19 mayors and our 5 town supervisors. When you hear the word gathering, it's important to understand indoor and outdoor gatherings. Indoor gatherings typically are limited by percentage of capacity. For example, restaurants, we just spoke about churches and synagogues and of the like. Outdoor is a totally different situation, and of the same decision that was made based upon the application for relief by religious organizations, that same decision came with a second part to it. They looked at a guide, believe it or not, as the protest. The reality was, from the perspective of the judge, if people can protest and there was no need to limit them, why would you have the same limits be placed upon anybody else for that matter? And I think that's a very strong message that was sent for a variety of reasons, and I think it makes sense. So right now, for outdoor gatherings, the bottom line is that you are allowed, there is no limit on the number of people who can be at that gathering, with one important caveat. You must maintain social distance, and that is, again, as we know, maintaining 6 feet between people who are not related, and or having a mask on if you cannot maintain those 6 feet. You have heard nothing about this from Albany either. Again, I believe, because nobody wants to talk about it. But that is a federal court ruling right now. There has been no temporary restraining order granted in that case. So as of now, if you have a gathering, an outdoor gathering, I know we had a gathering up at Haverstraw with fireworks. As long as the social distancing is met, then you certainly can have a gathering without limitations on numbers. So that really pretty much is a recap of where we are. I know we have a number of questions, so I'm going to get to them, John. Oh, I forgot to introduce my man behind the curtain, my communications director, John Lyon, who's been fielding your questions, and we're going to get at it right now. Thank you, John.
You're welcome, and thank you to everybody who wrote in with their questions today. A lot of people want to get an idea of the general picture. How are our numbers? Where are hospitalizations? Where do we stand in that regard?
Our numbers have remained fairly steady over the past 2 weeks. Generally, under 10 people hospitalized and or confirmed or suspected to have COVID. So the combination number is 10. There were times we were well beyond that, up near 300 at one point. And while we do see a handful of new positive results every day, these numbers are well within the metrics required for us to continue reopening and are being handled appropriately by a Department of Health. The number of unfortunate deaths from this disease is holding steady also at 668. But to put that in perspective, again, every death, every fatality is a tragedy. We have thankfully not seen a death due to COVID since June 30th. And the previous one before that was about 10 days prior to that date. Now, the bottom line is we're in a good place. But, we all have to understand something. I think everybody at a conscious level gets the fact COVID's not going away. We're going to have to figure out ways of living with this virus as until there's a vaccine. This is not the measles. We don't have a vaccination or immunization to give out. We don't have natural immunity. As of right now, we don't know that. So what we need to do here, in my humble view, is we need to try to start approaching normalcy. Recognize the fact that we do have a very dangerous virus out there that in some cases can create serious, significant physical and medical challenges to anybody, regardless of age. The cohort that seems to be the most targeted are our older people and those who have immunocompromised systems. But it doesn't save a 40-year-old. Apparently, this virus is a very devious virus that if you get it, you could be one of the unlucky ones, even though you're not in that cohort of high risk. But again, the fact of the matter is, we have to confront this virus head on. Be smart about things. Do things that seemingly are working well. Face coverings, as annoying as they are, they seem to be working. Keeping your hands clean. Wash your hands for 20 seconds. Don't put your hands to your face. You also want to make sure that you maintain social distancing. Again, there's no absolute answer here. They're learning things every day about this virus. So our choices are twofold. One, we could hide under our beds and do nothing and hope for the best, which is, there's nothing to that, obviously. Or we can move about our lives and do it in a smart way, and which is what we're doing now. We're reopening our economy. We're trying to get back to normal. We're doing things in a measured manner that makes sense right now with what we have. It's called best judgments, folks, and that's what we need to do. But the bottom line is this: you can check your local numbers on our dashboard via the Rockland Planning and Health Department has that. It's updated every weekday afternoon, and their link when you go to our main page on our website, which is rocklandgov.com. It's rocklandgov.com.
Okay. And received a number of questions like this today. When will our local DMV office open up so our kids can get their permits?
Okay. The West Haverstraw DMV office is currently open and allowing car or motorcycle permit testing only by appointment. And the DMV, again, is a state agency, not a county agency. So anything you need to get from the DMV, you should go to the New York State website, and it's ny.gov. Look up the DMV. They have their own page there, obviously. It's interactive, so that's where you should go to get up-to-date current information.
Okay. And a related follow-up question. When will driving schools start teaching the 5-hour required class so that kids can then schedule their road test and move through the process?
Right. We have gotten a lot of phone calls. I've actually reached out to some of the schools already personally and had conversations with them, parents and teens. I remember the day when I wanted to get my permit, anxious to resume their classes. Unfortunately, and to be very clear, the decision is being made by New York State, not the county. It's distressing to hear that some of the phone calls being made to DMV are being referred back to the county control room. I made a phone call to a gentleman with DMV. I think I made it very clear in the message I left for him that I was not a happy camper. I have no patience for people who try to distract or try to take citizens or residents who call and distract them with some kind of commentary that it's not their job. If it's not their job, they should quit. So I made it very clear in my message to this person that I expect a phone call back so we can have a discussion about responsibility. No, I have not heard back from him yet. But it is really something that the in-vehicle instruction is permitted this time, but there's no in-person classroom instruction allowed at this time. My concern is that the read that the state has is they have been saying no to classroom instruction, not realizing all classrooms are not created equal. This lady I spoke to who has her own driver instruction school. Thank you, John. She told me she had it all laid out as how they were going to handle it. Made perfectly good sense. Minimal, interaction, social distancing. Bring your own pen, so there's no pens being exchanged. It's just mind-boggling. So I did bring this to the control room today with a plea for a sense of urgency. There's no reason why this should drag on. This is the kind of stuff that drives me and the 6 county executives in the control room absolutely crazy. There is absolutely no reason why the driving school owner actually said, we'll teach them outside if need be. So if we can eat outside, why can't we teach them outside? Again, the ingenuity of the people here in Rockland County will figure a way to get it done. So I brought all of this forward. Like I said, I know some other schools have put the precautions in place already, and we'll see what happens. I'm expecting, hopefully, get a green light within a couple of days. But I will continue to advocate for this to be allowed in our regional calls, and it would help if you contacted the governor's office directly. I spoke to it today when in the control room, and look, the fact of the matter is a squeaky wheel gets the grease. That's a fact. So you can reach the governor's office at 518-474-8390, 518-474-8390. And if somebody tells you that it's up to the county, or they tell you it's up to the mid-region, you can tell them County Executive Ed Day said you're a liar. You let them make a decision. That's what they're there for.
Okay, and moving on to...
Am I being too direct?
You're very direct. It's one of the things that I personally appreciate about you. But moving on to the next question we have, when will gyms open? We lightly touched on this in the opening, but what can you tell us?
Okay, the gyms. Now, the gyms that are allowed to be open, and this goes back to phase 2, as I recollect. It's been phase 3. The gyms that are allowed to open on phase 3 were residence gyms and gyms that were in hotels. Those 2 gymnasiums were allowed to be open. It was the commercial gyms that were not to be allowed open. Don't ask me why. Maybe there's a belief that more familiarity when you have a gym in a residence or in a hotel, person can be tracked down more in an easier fashion. I honestly don't know what the logic was, but right now gyms are not in any phase, and no official date has been set. And this goes back to what I said earlier. We're being told by the governor they're still looking at data and studies. Data and studies are important, but if you're still looking at data and studies, in my view, I think there's a question of preparedness that needs to be asked. I don't understand this, I really don't. But anyway, they're not providing any concrete information, and again, this is something that we can bring forward. We can bring your concerns. I've heard from a number of gym owners already who have done everything they can reasonably do to maintain a safe environment. But again, we're being held up by the governor's office, and that's where it stands.
Okay. When are indoor services for libraries and banks going to open?
Okay, libraries and banks are allowed to be open right now, and I was at the bank yesterday. Not that I have much reason to be there, because I don't have a lot of money in there, but I believe they're included in phase 2, as I recollect. So as long as the safeguards such as social distancing, the use of face coverings are in place, they are open right now. I know most, if not all, of our local libraries are offering curbside and window pickup for items, and that you can also browse online. I urge you to take advantage of these offerings. Would be a good idea. But again, we keep getting back to what we believe to be the most effective, simple way of protecting ourselves: social distancing, face coverings, and hygiene. Good hygiene, washing your hands.
Absolutely. Are playgrounds officially open yet?
Yes, outdoor playgrounds are allowed to be opened, and our playground at Haverstraw Bay Park has been open to the public since June 27th. We initially opened in tandem with New Jersey. As you recall, I actually reached out to my colleague Jim Tedesco, the county executive of Bergen County, because since we were not open we were opening and closing at different times, it was creating a stress on our respective parks depending on who was open. We worked together to communicate with the governors, and we got the okay to make our own arrangement here to make sure that the parks would be open at the same time and closed at the same time. So at that time, Haverstraw Bay Park was a walking park only. We really weren't allowed seating or anything like that. Well, now the playground's open now, so mom and dad, you can bring the kids up there. Grandmas and grandpas can bring the kids up there. But however, understand this: any playground that you have that you wish to go to, it is within a domain of the operator of the facility whether or not they are going to be open. We're not waving a magic wand and saying you must open. What we're saying is you are allowed to open. The town, the entity that controls the playground, is the arbiter of whether or not they're open or not.
Okay. And a somewhat concerning question that came in, someone was in their doctor's office, and their health practitioner was not wearing a mask. How do we report that? What do we do about that?
That's a problem. It really is. The best place to file this type of complaint is with the New York State Pause Task Force. I'll give you a number in a second. That Pause Task Force communicates on a regular basis with our district attorney, our county sheriff, and our deputy commissioner of health here in Rockland County in order to get enforcement for the complaint. The complaints typically are handled by law enforcement, as in fact the executive orders from the governor are all enforceable by law enforcement. The governor made that very clear. Our health department will assist as necessary, but typically they'll be working with the police if they find anything that they normally would be dealing with as it relates to health department responsibilities. There'll be an online complaint form that we'll provide a link to at in the comments section of this broadcast. But you can also file a complaint by phone by calling 1-833-789-0470. Again, 833-789-0470. That is the New York State Pause Hotline, 24/7, by the way.
Has there been any consideration or thought given to keeping Rockland Lake Park for Rockland residents only?
Okay. I've heard this so many times, that's why I'm smiling. It would be wonderful to have that big park here, but it is a state park. It is not a county park. So it's open to anyone and everyone who chooses to go there. I don't think there's any limits even by other states, to be frank with you, but if there was one, it would be enforced by the state park police. Some towns and villages have an ability to make their parks residents only, but that is not an option for a state park to the best of my knowledge. However, the 4th of July holiday went well, and it passed without major issue. And I want to just digress one moment to offer a real heartfelt thank you. Those will remember Rockland State Park in 2018 was an unmitigated disaster. Nobody had ever seen anything as bad as they saw in any of the holidays 2 years ago on July 4th. Cars all over the place, roads blocked. It was just an absolute utter mess. I spoke to local legislator and local councilman at the time, Lori Sansuli and Pete Bradley, and we assembled a working group. And this was something that goes back to my own training in law enforcement at the command level, having an emergency meeting to put down plans, make sure people are speaking to each other. And the short version of this is that everybody remotely involved in any facet of the operations, protections, services of that park were tied into one meeting where we continued to utilize strategies that were designed to make sure this would never, ever happen again. We had law enforcement, our EMS, our firefighters, parks police, state police, park management. Anybody you can think of who remotely was involved in that park was at that first meeting. And we built up on that. Labor Day came along in 2018. We were fine. Memorial Day came, 2019. We were good. The big test was 4th of July last year. It went very, very well. Here we are again, the same plans we used. Oh, by the way, one of the strategies we used was tow trucks. That worked very well because once someone saw their car towed, everybody else decided not to park illegally. So anyway, this year I heard nothing but positive commentary from people who were out at the parks. We did a follow-up review, and it looked like it was really a great job that was done by you all. I want to really thank our first responders and those from the Parks Department and anybody who was involved in putting this together. It's a massive undertaking. I saw some of the drone shots last year as just how massive the attendance is and how much of an impact it is. Just an amazing job done, and I want to give a lot of credit from the very first meeting in the summer of 2018, where we've come from, and it just goes to show you with proper planning and execution, the three Ds: determination, dedication, and drive. Putting those three things into place really made for a safe a safe 4th of July for the residents there and also for the visitors who came there. So in any event, I just didn't want this moment to pass without acknowledging these folks publicly.
Okay. This next commenter wrote that they read somewhere that an employer cannot prevent the use of additional PPE, but can't find where they read that.
Right.
For example, possibly using a face shield in addition to a mask if they work in a retail
Right.
store. Do you know if this is the case and where this information might be available?
I think the face shield, I've seen people with face shields, and I was at a restaurant the other day, and the waiter was wearing a face shield, and a lot more comfortable than a mask. So if you can do it, I think it makes a lot more sense. It's better protection too, by the way. Your employer should not be limiting the personal protective equipment, the PPE, that you're allowed to wear during your time spent at work. The guidelines issued by the New York State detail the minimum requirements, but do not prescribe limits to the protective actions that can be taken. So theoretically, based upon the executive order, you should not be told to wear less. It says it's a minimum amount you should be putting on, but the area of maximum is silent. So, if you're having an issue with this, where you should go to, if it's a problem at a place of employment, you should file a complaint with the New York State Department of Labor via a link that John will post on the comments section after this update concludes.
And before we get into the last question that was submitted today, there's been a few things in the chat that I just want to
Sure.
bring up real quickly. There have been a number of people asking about the enforcement of the use of masks. What can be done, what should be done in that regard?
Okay, strictly speaking, the enforcement of the use of masks falls to a local police, okay? What I would ask from people is this. Most people here in Rockland County are going to do the right thing. That is just a fact of life. Most people are going to wear face coverings. They're going to maintain social distance. They get it, okay? You're going to have a small percentage of people who don't get it. And we can talk to them, we can cajole. We're actually working on something now, a PSA involving some young sports notables that our young people understand who they are, and maybe we'll listen to them more than listen to somebody my age. But if you feel a need to call the police over if somebody not wearing a face covering, you're certainly allowed to do it. Law enforcement will hopefully be able to get over there. And again, their approach is not going to be throw handcuffs on anybody. They're going to basically say, look, sir, ma'am, you really have to cover your face. They can take enforcement action if need be, because anytime law enforcement is authorized to take action, they have to have an ability to restrict freedom if necessary. But nobody sees that occurring. You certainly can say something, but again, if you do that, you may end up with a confrontational situation, which I don't know if you're looking to do that. There's no absolute answer here. I mean, we're not in a place in this country where somebody's going to be thrown up against the wall and have a mask forcibly put on their face. You could ask, you can cajole. Our stores can now, they've been authorized by the state, by the executive's orders, that they can exclude you from the store if you are not wearing a face covering. That's just a fact right now. That's, again, if you're medically able to. That's the other executive order. There's also ADA compliance that stores have to concern themselves with, because if somebody says, look, you know something, I have a disability, the conversation stops right there, because under the law you can't converse past that. So, look, I know it frustrates people, especially those of you, the vast majority of people who are following the rules, doing the right thing. But if you take a step back and think about it, there's only so much that can reasonably be done to get people to comply with common sense. The issue here is to make sure that they don't infect other people. And while certain people may feel it doesn't matter, that they're not worried about it, they don't think about people that are close to them, that they should darn well care about their health, because you may end up killing somebody because of a disease that nobody understands, and may be a mild virus to you, but it may be somebody puts somebody in a hospital or worse to somebody else.
Okay. And one other question that had popped up a little bit earlier is there were a lot of people concerned about students maybe going to camps, why some camps are open, why other camps aren't. What can you sort of tell us about this?
Okay, day camps are open. They're allowed under the emergency orders. The issue that comes up now is where are the camps? Now, the problems they had in some of the municipalities, I know my good friend Jim Monahan at Stony Point, they could not do camps this year. Number one, the first thing that was a problem was it was too long a wait for information from the state. There was prep time that was not allowed to, they could not do because they did not know until too late in the game. But even Jim tried to get this to happen, but the problem was is that their camp system works based upon a presumption a school will be opened for inclement weather, days that kids cannot be outside. The school district opted not to open the schools up, and that's not a criticism. I mean, don't anybody misread me. I don't want to be yelled at by the principals. This is a decision made not to open the schools. Some school districts have opened the schools. Some private schools have opened up. So if a school is open, a day camp is allowed. Simple as that, okay? They have to go through all the rules and regulations that are part of day camps, including Department of Health is to be involved. So those things all have to occur. But there's no absolute ban on day camps anywhere as long as the facility that's hosting them is obviously okay with it.
Okay. Thank you. And into the last question that we submitted earlier. And for those submitted questions in the chat, we post every morning before these so we can look for the answers to your questions. It's oftentimes hard to answer them on the spot, so please look for that in advance to those who are saying, we're not answering your question.
Well, I did pretty good on that one.
Absolutely, okay. Absolutely. So the last one that was submitted today, which came in with a little bit of a sarcastic tone, how come I can go skydiving and not bowling? I have a much greater chance of dying from jumping out of a plane than from coronavirus. Also, do you know when the governor's direct control will end and our locally elected assembly members and senators will be able to represent us again?
Okay, well, I know there's been a couple of instances with skydiving, but I would not use that as the be-all and end-all of the safety of skydiving. Skydiving is safe. One is done professionally, so I will lightly object to that contention that was made, but I get the sarcasm for sure. As to the governor's control and handling of the pandemic, let me be very clear. His leadership was extremely important during the early days. Again, him and his team put together a structure of a plan. It was implemented. These are the things I look at as someone who's been involved in emergency management, in law enforcement, in 2 different police departments. That said, the time has passed. We're seeing now when you're trying to control the action from one spot far, far away, and you're not engaging and using those out in the field, the field generals, so to say, which I've referred to as, our local officials, you're making a huge mistake. You can't continue to run the show the way it's being run. I've said this more than once, and I'm speaking from experience. I'm not speaking from anger. I'm not even speaking from frustration. I'm speaking from experience. You have to offload some of these things to your field generals. Let them do the heavy work. Take the pulse of the community that they are part of and actually are the elected leaders of, and let them make some of the calls here. We understand what's at stake. What's at stake here is not just our economy, not just our good health. Everything's at stake here. Life as we know it is at stake here. So it's important that you give those who have been entrusted with the localities the authority to take that action. We all have the ability to go and the tools to look at the metrics. We know where the line can't be crossed. We understand all that. But what's happening now is just in some ways the effort is starting to collapse under its own weight, and we here are trying to make it work. All the execs are doing in this control room, we're bringing information back. Like I said, the lady who runs the driver's program, she's bringing very legitimate concerns down, and frankly, very solvable situations. This is the frustrating part. When you're as a leader, you're presented with information, and you have the ability to make a decision right on the spot, and you're offloading it to someone who's going to go back to Albany, ask somebody else, what should we do? So maybe God knows how many people getting involved in this discussion or decision. There's no need for it. It's a straightforward matter. The bottom line is that the control should fall to the decision makers. That will be the county executives, the town supervisors, and our mayors. Those people have been elected by you to basically take care of the things that are being thrown at us. It's incredibly frustrating to be sharing information with his office and only not to have it responded in a timely manner. My timeline is not Albany's timeline. I work at a different speed. I work deliberatively. but I work in a timeline that has the sense of urgency that is part of the era we are in right now. And that's what I'll continue to do. I am not comfortable with us being in phase 4.5 right now. So I brought this up today. I'm sharing with you as a matter of transparency. These are things that I expect right now from Albany. I am hopeful that we'll see something happen, and I would certainly ask that there be more inclusiveness by Albany into embracing the local leaders here who have, with all due respect, a heck of a lot better sense of what's going on here than anybody in Albany does. So with that, I will just share a couple of numbers with you. Again, we mentioned earlier the pause hotline, 24/7. Any complaints that you have as it relates to violations, 833-789-0470, 833-789-0470. Your own county website, a plethora of information on everything you would want to know. That is at rocklandgov.com, rocklandgov.com. If you want to get a look nationally at what's going on, rt.live, rt.live. It gives you a sense of the metrics nationwide and where New York State fits into all of that. And ny.gov, which is the state website, ny.gov. And for information on the phases, business affirmations, and please, local businesses, please fill out affirmations. Get that done, submit it, print a copy out, put it into your local establishment, and have it there in case it has to be inspected by anybody. Also, you will be getting a certificate. In fact, I have it here. I remind you of a certificate just like this. I encourage you, you can see it all right, John? I encourage you, when you get this, hang it up. People are anxious. They have been through a lot, and your mere opening up is not necessarily going to bring in everybody that you would expect to come in after being away from you for a couple of months. So these type of initiatives are there to help you and also to provide a sense of calm to a very anxious society that we are living in right now. My view, and again, my background in emergency and crisis management, the one thing you never want to do is to make it worse. You want to calm people down, make sure they understand what the challenges are, and offer concrete, calm ways of facing those challenges. Anybody who is out there trying to get you worked up is not there to lead. It's just as simple as that. So we will do our best to continue bringing information to you in a calm, methodical manner, being honest with you as to what is going on, not just here in the county, but in the state, and the challenges we face as county executives and supervisors and mayors in trying to get things done for you. And we'll continue doing that. So with that, we will be back next Tuesday at 4:15, God willing. I couldn't resist. My mom used to say it all the time, God bless her. But anyway, we'll be back next week to give you another update. And with that, have a wonderful afternoon and a great week.